Hey everybody, this is Surviving Darkness with Heather and Jenny, and we are recording episode 28 today. Hey, we're almost at 30.
I know. Well, Jesse was sure to remind us before we got started that we've been at this for 6 months. So episode 26 would have been 6 months.
That's
Still
right.
Going strong.
Yep.
Most days.
Mm-hmm.
most days when we record, we're going strong.
And it's nice to get feedback too. Like, we just read a text to you yesterday from a listener and said that, she wasn't caught up right now, but she was still listening and she'd shared it with people too. And it's nice to hear that stuff.
Right. Well, I got a text saying that they were on the cheesy episode and did laughing faces. So glad we were entertaining.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes it's good to change it up and let people see our real personalities too. I mean, not that we're being fake, but we're not always serious.
Right. Yeah.
And even in that episode, we talked about, that's our way. Humor is our way of dealing with a lot of stuff. We goof off and try not to focus so much on the negative.
And even with Dad, you know what I mean? Like, that was one thing he always did too, was joke and pick and everything like that.
And had
with everybody.
Words.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so, we had, it wasn't always horrible times.
I've got to make noise. Everything was quiet before we get started, but I have to make the noise.
Heather's over here adjusting
the chair. I'm just trying to get comfortable here.
She couldn't have done that 5 minutes ago before we started recording.
It was comfortable until I started talking. You know how it is. But anyway, we are going to attempt to do the one, like the follow-up for the one that we had done weeks ago. We've already recorded it once, and I don't know how, but the first 20-25 minutes of it just was no longer existent. So for whatever reason, the enemy does not want us to talk about any of that stuff.
Yeah, because we talked about the fact that I had paused it to walk out of the room, but that wasn't even
during that time.
Yeah, that got deleted. So we have no idea what in the world happened.
Yeah.
So, well, we kind of know, but anyways.
Well, the thing is that's the episode where we had to stop. We were both a little shook. You, I think, more so than what I was. And you're in the part of dealing with all of this to where you really have to have time to process stuff and deal with it before you start talking about it. And I've been years of processing and dealing. So it hit you a little harder. And that was
something that had never
come up.
Yeah. I'd completely forgotten about all of that, and even when I was listening back to it, I remember I was in the shower and was just listening to it. And even in my mind, like I said on there, I know it's the truth because the reaction I had was not, it wasn't, it wasn't a fake or anything like that, but it just literally, I was sick to my stomach. I was starting to have almost like a panic attack. And that's why I was like, I have to stop. I can't. And so, I mean, my body, I would not have reacted like that, if it wasn't something that I truly remembered,
I felt like during that podcast too, I was becoming when we would try to talk to people before, it would jumble stuff up for me. Even if it was in a text, it would send the text in all kinds of different order so that the person couldn't comprehend or understand what I was saying and would be like, why are you talking like this?
Right.
I can't follow the order that you're talking. And I'm like, I didn't send it in that order.
It happened with us a lot, you and me a lot, especially when you were married the second time, it would do that all the time. If you were, sending messages about what was going on, and then also even like screenshots and stuff like that. It would just make it to where it was indiscernible. You
and
couldn't,
when I would talk on the phone or
mm-hmm.
talk to someone, I would have total panic attacks. I mean, it
mm-hmm.
would attack me. It would not let me breathe. And then I would get shook because I couldn't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, it was trying to keep me quiet. And I could feel my body doing that, getting to it. I just having trouble breathing
right
during that episode. For whatever reason, it doesn't want us to discuss that.
Right.
And that was the one where we were talking about the bargaining. Did it offer anything? And I think that it was just so out there and so off the
what got me about
crazy.
What mine was what made me respond the way I did was remembering that it was talking about like making a family with that and me. Right. Basically something like that. It was talking to you about being married to it. You know what I mean? Like it was weird. It was like it was almost like it was recruiting you
as a power couple.
Yeah. And then talking to me about reproducing. And I mean, like, this is something I really do need to research. I really do. I can't yet. I've been looking at other things, but I can't in that. Maybe one of you all can, but I can't right now. But that, and I did not ever remember it talking, that, I guess that was just so traumatic for me even then that I did not remember that at all until that day when you Jess brought up about the bargaining and you started talking about it, and it just hit me out of nowhere. And like you say, a lot of times I do pretty good now talking about things if I'm prepared. Obviously that one, I don't know that I would have ever been prepared for, because I didn't remember it.
Right.
I think any way that one would have come up, I probably would have had that same reaction.
Right.
And I mean, that to me, that it's, for one, it's sickening.
It is.
I mean, like I said then, what type of whatever creature, whatever was it thinking, or, I mean, which it wasn't, it was just thinking of running the world, basically, you know what I mean? But, so, but for two, it's just like pure craziness. And we lived that, and that's hard to believe too. Like I said, it's just hard to truly believe for me sometimes the stuff that we actually lived through. Right. And lived to tell, and are talking about it now.
Right.
But I think that that's what it was. Like I said, even when I was listening to it in the shower, it was still just like, did I really say that? Do I really, I mean, it's just so unbelievable. I say that word a lot, but just everything that we went through.
But isn't that another technique that it was using though? It was just things that, like, as adults are incomprehensible to us now, were things that were being said to us as a way of torture.
Yeah.
I mean, it was torture.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about it was torture.
Yeah.
And you're right. I don't know how some days that we didn't have like mental breakdowns and totally lose it, because I mean, we had a lot of stress on us, not only from a demonic presence, but it was, don't let anyone know what's going on. Fears of becoming pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
What would we do if we were pregnant? That was on us, and we were just teenagers.
Yeah.
Not only were we being abused, but we also had the fear of becoming pregnant,
mm-hmm.
what we would have had.
Mm-hmm.
And we were told that.
Right.
if you're pregnant, you'll have to get an abortion because we don't even know if it'll be human.
Right.
And
then getting pregnant by people too. You know what I mean? Like, just,
those are real issues that we face on a daily basis.
When you were forced to do things with people that you had like no desire to do anything with whatsoever, and anytime that you're made to do that, there's a chance that you can get pregnant, period. And to think that we could have had kids with some of the people that we were made to do things with too, that's just hard.
I thank God that didn't happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Because my own convictions as far as having abortions, I don't know that I could have mentally and emotionally lived with that.
I don't know either. I don't know either.
I'm glad we didn't have to make that decision.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we were never faced with that. I mean, there were scares. I won't lie. There was times that I'd be late or whatever and be scared to death. What am I going to do?
Right.
And then you got the whole, well, what are people going to think about you if you wind up pregnant?
Yeah. And then, and it's not like it is now. I mean, it's more open now. It's still, the molestation and things like that is still a taboo topic somewhat, but it's more open now,
And then demonic stuff, ghosts, whatever. You didn't talk about that stuff.
And if we would have ended up getting pregnant by, like Dad or, somebody else like that, then we would have had to have made up an excuse, or, made up a story as to who it was, some, teenage boy that nobody even knew who it was. And it would all be on us. It would have just been our fault.
Right.
And
the stories would have been, I don't know, she just snuck out or something.
Yeah.
It would have definitely been us put in a negative light, even though we were already going through so much negative. It's, to me, looking back, it's amazing how strong God made our minds to be able to handle all the stress that we were under. Because not only did we have to worry about keeping our grades up, being good in sports, but not letting anyone know what was going on in that house, being afraid of what could happen because of the actions that were going on in that house, being afraid that at any moment we could die.
Right.
Because death was definitely a threat, and especially with the knives in the bed, the hatchets, the threats in blood, everything else. That was another thing that we had to worry about. And we didn't understand because we weren't raised in a church that taught anything about spiritual warfare, taught anything about fighting demons, nothing like that. We didn't know that we had that power. So we were like, I guess, I won't say felt like we were in a prison. We were in a prison.
Yes.
It wasn't so much walls or bars or whatever like that, but we were in an emotional and terrified type of prison. I don't know the exact word or how you would describe it. It wasn't a physical bars and stuff like that, but it was more an emotional prison and fear tactics. And
no, we didn't have physical bars, but we still had
a hostage situation.
We had so many restrictions.
Yes.
And it was, well, you can only go here if you're with us, or, this or that. And that was just to make sure that nothing was ever said or no one ever found out anything. So no, it wasn't physically, but it was, and, it basically, we couldn't go hardly any places.
And when we did, we had to say exactly what we talked about so that it could be critiqued. Well, you should have said this and you shouldn't have said that. And Lord forbid you remember something that was said a week or two later, because then we were trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't even anything important. Why didn't you tell me that when you got home that day? I didn't think about it. No, you were trying to hide it from me. It wasn't even anything important to be hiding.
And I mean, we were just having regular teenage conversations. It wasn't like we were trying to say anything about anything that was going on, because by that time, we both had already tried to get help and nothing happened. And it was like, why are we going to talk about it again to somebody else? Because nothing's going to work. You know what I mean? So we were just having regular, I don't know about you, but when I would go to my friend's house, then I wouldn't, that was my escape. I didn't talk about any of that stuff. I didn't want to.
Right.
I mean, yes, I wanted to be out of the situation. Absolutely. But like I said, we'd already felt like, well, we tried to get help and it was turned around on us. And so whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So when I'm gone from home, I want to do things that I don't think about that stuff.
Try to be a normal teenager.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. Yes.
And I didn't really want to discuss what was going on because that was my escape too.
Yes. Even school. I was like, I never missed school. I had to be really, really sick to miss school because that was my escape too.
Did you ever have a fear that something would happen? Like it would follow you to school or something would happen? I always had, in the back of my mind, I had that fear that something would happen and it would show itself or something. And that scared me.
I'm sure I did. I can't think about that. You know what I mean? Like I can't say, yeah, at some point I did, but I'm sure that crossed my mind, or somebody would walk in and find out something, was going on or whatever, like when our friends stayed, which nothing happened a lot whenever somebody was here. But at the same time, I guess I was kind of scared of that. And, would they see anything, not just sexually, but I'm talking about, the demonic and stuff like that. Would they see it? And then would they even want to come back around or whatever?
I think that where I had seen it take over people so easily, I had that fear that I was going to be out somewhere and it was going to take over me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then everybody would know that it was around.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we were told that it could do that, and it would do that,
and do whatever it wanted with us.
Yes. And we would do, we would have sex. We would do whatever it wanted, and we would never even know anything about it. And that was scary, because in high school or just in general, like we've said before, we did things wrong. We weren't even supposed to have boyfriends, and I had boyfriends, and, but we didn't go out for one. We didn't go, and we weren't promiscuous. But then it only takes one time of something happening and people talk, and there goes your reputation. And I was scared that something like that might happen, and then everybody's going to find out and think we're crazy and all this other stuff too.
And that, I remember in high school, a girl had told me that she had heard that I had sex with an ex-boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I didn't. And she was like, and I remember it years later, she was like, I won't spread it around that you're a whore.
Yeah.
And I was like, I honestly didn't. Mm-hmm. And that bothered me. That made me so mad.
Well, if you remember that, I confronted a guy about that. Like, I was ready to throw down with him my freshman or sophomore year in high school, because there was a guy that came to me and he was like, is it true? And I was like, what in the world are you talking about? He was like, well, this guy said that you slept with him. I said, I've never even spoken to that guy. I've never even said hello to him. He said, well, he told me that in gym class. I said, that's fine. And the next day, after gym class was over, because, we had gym together, but the guys were on one end, the girls were on the other. And I confronted him, and his friend was like, oh, he never said anything like that. I said, I wasn't talking to you. I said, you need to shut up, because I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to him. I said, and I better never hear anything like that again, because I don't even know you. And he said, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know you. I said, exactly. But this person would not have walked up to me and just said that. He wouldn't have.
Right.
He was a kind of a respectful guy. You have those ones that would have just said something like that, but this guy
right
wasn't like that.
Right.
And it was like he was kind of blown away by, like, really? Did you do that?
Right.
And so, yeah, and because things were going on that could have caused our reputations to be tarnished or whatever, whenever we were at home and things were happening.
I think for me, it was because I already felt dirty.
Right. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I already felt like I was trash. And for someone to accuse me of something that I didn't do, when I'm being forced to do that, it was, I don't know, it was a totally different kind of mad.
That's something I'm glad you said, because if there's anybody that listens to this, and even if you're newly listening to this, if you have ever been molested or, even, heaven forbid, raped, anything like that, you aren't the one that's tainted. You aren't the one that has caused any problems. And that feeling should not be there. And it is. And it's taken us a long time to realize that it wasn't us. We didn't do anything to bring this stuff on. And, even if that's said to you, like, well, you were wearing this, and so that's why I touched you or whatever, no. That's on that person. That's not on you.
That's their shame to be carrying.
Yes. And make sure that that. Just keep saying that to yourself. It is not me. It is not me. That's their sickness. Because that is very important, that you have at least that bit of control to know it's not you. You are not the problem. And yes, it's happened to you. Yes, it does make you feel very dirty, as you said, very dirty. And it does. And you have no control over it when it's something like, a family member or whatever, things like that, or you have no control over that. But just know and keep that in mind. It is not you.
Right. It's not your guilt. It's not your shame to carry. That belongs to the person who did that to you.
Yes. And more than likely, if they never get help and never admit it, they're not going to feel that shame.
No, they're not.
They do have a sickness. I'm not excusing anything by any means whatsoever.
Right.
But for them to look at a kid or somebody and think that there's something not right in their head, but you don't have to act on it.
No, you don't.
So
it's a choice.
Yeah. And that's what we've said a lot of times too with our family.
And I feel like that's a control thing too. People who do that feel like they have to control people. They have to tear them down and control, and because that is crushing to someone else. It makes them feel like they're powerful. And I just don't understand it.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up this topic that we were going to talk about today, and then we kind of went on to finish the other topic, but we had talked about the one family member who was needing help financially. And so she had been talking to another one of our family members about things. And so that person was like, yeah, I can help you. Yeah, I can help you pay for your power bill. But what's in it for me? And they were family. But the proposition was made, basically, I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this. You take care of me, and I'll help you pay your bill.
Right.
But it wasn't, you take care of me X amount of times.
Right.
And I'll help you pay your bill. No, it was just repeated. And I mean, there's no way in this world that I could look at anybody for, I mean, just in general, I couldn't do it anyway, but look at one of my family members and be like, yeah, sure, I'll give you that money, but you're going to take care of me. We're going to figure this out. We're going to deal this, we're going to make a deal.
Right.
I don't know how you do that.
I don't either.
But it's a power thing. It was a power thing.
I've
and
got
that
what
person
you
was
need.
strange anyway, and I don't know what happened with him. I have no idea. But yeah, exactly. Like you said, I have what you need. I'm gonna hold this over your head. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
I've got what you need, and you're going to do whatever I want. It's like a puppet.
It is. Mm-hmm.
I've got what you need. Now you're going to be my little puppet and do whatever I want you to do because I'm in control. I've got the means to control you right now.
Yeah. And when we were told that, I don't know how you felt, because we were in a conversation on the phone, but like, I think if I'd have been near that person, I probably would have hurt them that day.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, for one, to, just because you just don't do that. But for two, that's your family. You're not supposed to do that.
And that person was in a desperate time.
Yes.
So you took advantage of someone in a desperate, broken state.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say their mental status was probably not the best at that moment. They had gone through a lot of stuff, and then
and feel like you're going to lose everything.
Yes, I was getting ready to say, and it is hard to have to ask people for things sometimes. It is. Some people are okay with it, but some people are not. And when you have to ask for money or something like that from other people,
I think that's sometimes a little degrading too.
Mm-hmm.
To feel like you can't take care of yourself.
Right.
So you're already feeling down on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're already desperate because you know that you don't have the means to pay a bill or do whatever is needed, buy groceries, whatever. So you have to depend on someone else to help you with that. And then the person who's going to help you with that takes advantage of that and does stuff that is going to break you down. It's going to tear you down.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, when you're already down.
And how you take advantage of somebody like that, knowing that.
And if you weren't in a bad state, you would make the right decision. I'm not going to say, well, not right decision. You wouldn't make the decision to do that for the money.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I get what you're saying. And we're not trying to put that person down, but sometimes you do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And, and you have people to provide for and things like that. And so
if you didn't have all those stressors and you weren't in the state of feeling beat down already, you wouldn't have made the decision that you made.
Yes.
If you have all your resources there, you can make better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have it, you do what you feel like you've got to do at that second.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Been there, done that.
Right. Yeah, you do.
Growing up, we've been there, done that. We've had to make decisions to survive.
Yes.
And is it decisions that we would have made under different circumstances? Absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
But that's the choice we had to make at that point to live.
Right.
And it wasn't even, I'm not even exaggerating the live or die. It was a literal live or die.
It was.
I mean, you knew that when you had your life being taken and literally being choked out.
Yes. Yes.
And barely able to get Jesus out, or he's right here out. You know that that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So decisions that we had to make, and I guess maybe that's a way of making it not so bad on the other person. We chose to go ahead and do what was needed to be done. I guess to make them feel better about the things that we were being forced to do.
And this week, I don't know what has brought this up, but one of the men that was involved, he we've said this before, he and his brother were murdered. And this week, that has been on my mind several times. I have no idea why. I said this before we got started. This week has been been a hard week for me. Like, I'm just mad this week about things. You know, I know there's other things that are going on too, and maybe that's why that my mind is just going back to things. But when I picture, or think about them get him killed, like we've said before, I hate that for his family. I truly do. Sometimes I wish that maybe I'd have been there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see somebody get killed, but at the same time, part of me is like, maybe I would have liked to have been there. And that's not right to feel that way. And I know this. But at the same time, your mind just does that sometimes. My heart does not feel like that. My Christian self knows that that's not right, But still, with everything that we went through at the hands of that person too, like,
I get it.
I don't.
And then that's part of like the battle in your mind this week. Then you feel guilty for feeling that way or thinking that way. And you're like, what's wrong with me? Am I that hard? Am I that cold? Mm-hmm. So you have those battles going on. We're human.
Yeah.
We've gone through a lot, and there's going to be stuff that's going to resurface over the years just out of nowhere. And like, you've been having nightmares and crazy dreams. Mom's been having nightmares and crazy dreams. I just had one the other night, and I was telling you about it. Even in our dreams, we notice the effects physically that it has, because even in my dream, I'm telling myself, you're going to have to, or telling that person, you're going to have to give me a minute. My heart is racing, and I'm saying this in my dream, and I'm feeling it. Like my heart is literally pounding out of my chest, and my eyes are watering.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that. I'll just say the dream, because it wasn't that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that bad, like the things that we've seen. I just ran into a random person that I didn't even know. And she just asks me out of nowhere, so I've got to know. I've just got to know. Is it a werewolf? Is it a vampire? What is it? And I'm looking at her like, what in the world are you talking about? I don't even know this person. And why is she asking me these random questions? And she was like, I listened to your podcast. I've got to know this thing that y'all saw. Was it a werewolf? Was it a vampire? What was it? And I still, like, I can remember exactly how I felt in my dream. It was like I got punched in the gut, and I had to take a second to catch my breath, and I could feel my heart racing and my eyes watering. And I was like, no, it was a demonic presence. It was a demon.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on to explain, sometimes it was in people. I didn't really see it. And everything that I had already talked about in the podcast, I was explaining to this person that I didn't even know. And I was like, you've just got to give me a second. My heart is just beating out of my chest. I said, I wasn't expecting that question, and I didn't even know that you had been watching the podcast.
Right.
Which is something I guess we should always be prepared for, because we don't know who watches our podcast.
Listen, yeah.
Or listens, or whatever.
Yeah.
To it. We don't know who all.
Mm-mm.
So I guess at all times we should be prepared for whatever questions. No, it's not a vampire, and no, it's not. It's
a werewolf. It's nothing that your mind,
like that.
Yeah, it's nothing that anyone's mind you
could comprehend.
Yeah, you can't.
Or picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a dream. But you wake up and your heart is racing, and I felt like I had been crying.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you actually remember those feelings of the time that you were going through that.
Yes.
Your heart feeling like it's going to explode, like it's beating out of your chest, the fear, just all those emotions all at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So even when we're trying to sleep, we've got that coming at us.
Yes. So, we're talking about dreams, nightmares. The last one I had was a couple weekends ago. And it was, the nightmare itself was very scary for me, but what happened trying to come out of it had never happened to me before. And that ended up, I think, scaring me more, because normally when I have those nightmares, I start to talk out a little bit and somebody wakes me up. That it just, normally it's my husband, and once it's been my little guy, mommy, wake up, because my husband has told him that if something happens and mommy has nightmares, you wake her up. You just wake her up. This one, I couldn't get awake. It was very, very weird. I was using my foot to, hit my husband, because consciously I could move my foot and hit him to help me, but I could not get awake. I've never had that happen. It was very, very, very weird, very strange. And he said, and I don't know this part, once I got his attention, he said that he couldn't hardly get me awake. And when he did, like, I couldn't breathe. I literally was like panicking, and I just busted out in tears. Never had that happen. Never. And he said, I've never had a problem getting you awake like that. He said, I couldn't get you awake. And it was weird, because I knew in my mind to get his attention, help me wake up, help me, because I was moving my foot consciously to have him help me. But I could not wake up, and he could not get me awake. And I've never had that happen. And in what was going on in the dream, I told you that it used Mama. Her grandmother was
a sweet, good Christian woman.
Yes. I've said she's the closest thing to a saint I've ever seen on this earth, And in my dream, which I have not talked about this, nobody knows about this, so this is the first time, it was like at a school, but it was almost like a church camp. And it was full of people. But this demonic presence had shown up at this place. And it was dealing with me, and that I'm trying to protect everybody, that's because that's how we do. I don't know I'm sure that's how you do in your dreams too.
Right.
If you've ever had something like that, you don't want it to affect anybody else. So you're trying your best for it, or you're fighting it or whatever. In that nightmare, it was starting to take over everybody, like changing their minds, changing their thoughts about everything. And the last person that it did that to was my mama, whose mind was changed completely irrationally. And I feel like if there was anybody on this earth that it never would have happened to, it was her. I'm not saying she never fought. I don't know. She never talked about anything, but she was a very godly woman. So I'm sure she fought things,
Right.
But anyway, when it got to her, that was almost like the end for me. But I wasn't giving up on fighting against this thing. And I kept saying, you all have to help me fight. You can't just give in. You have to help me fight. And like, I'm running everywhere trying to get everyone to listen to me and saying, you all are changing. You cannot do this. You have to help me fight. You have to help me. And that's when evidently I've started, because he said he had woke me up once. And he said, you woke up and then you went right back to sleep. And then this is what I'm trying to do, was tell everyone, you can't let it take over. You have to fight. You have to. Like, I can't be the only one. This has to be all of us. And that's what I was doing when I couldn't get awake.
Right.
And that dream terrified me. The ones I normally have, like I said, is either protecting somebody or fighting it and just trying to call out Jesus or God or help me. And you can't ever get it out,
Right.
And I don't know what the significance was of that dream, if there was any, but like I said, and it could have been kind of held over the emotions from the reaction that we had, a couple weeks before that from everything that went on. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But that one, that's why I said I can't even, at that point, I couldn't talk about it at all, because that whole day he was like, I need you to tell me about it. And I just told him, I said, I can't. And every time that I would start to think about it, I would start crying. Like,
right.
it was almost
like it was real.
Yeah, like it just happened. Like that was a reaction.
Right.
It wasn't just me saying, no, I can't, and then just getting upset and starting crying. It was like my body was doing it on its own because it had been so real to me in that dream.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think it's because there was, like, we felt a lot of times we were fighting alone. We didn't, I knew that there was something going on with you, but never knew that we should have been able to work together.
Right.
That was never allowed for us.
It made sure that didn't happen.
Yes.
And you were talking about it doing that with Mama. I have had several dreams of it. Like, it wasn't my grandma. It was a mean woman in my grandma's body.
Mm-hmm.
And I get what you're saying. It's hard because that definitely wasn't our grandma.
No.
And it's almost like it's trying to convince us in our dreams that, it can take over anybody.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Because like I said,
I can take control of anybody. And the people that you love the most and trust the most, I can control them too.
And that could have been it, because like I said, the very last one was her.
Yeah, I have had dreams.
And it was changing her mind. And I was like, no, and you're almost like, no, you know better. You know that you can't, that this can't happen.
Right.
What are you doing? And you shouldn't have that power to be able to do that. But it did, you know. And I'm sure that maybe that's what it was that scared me to death, So
I still, going back to the beginning, I don't know why, out of all the stuff that we have shared in now 28 episodes,
mm-hmm.
why it kept wanting us not to be able to share that. It wanted us to be quiet about that. Is it because of it bargaining? I don't know.
Do you think that maybe it was extremely powerful and made a lot of things happen, but it wasn't able to make that happen? Maybe it's mad because it wasn't able to make that happen ever.
And doesn't want us to talk
about it because it didn't have enough power to be able to do that.
It's possible.
Maybe that's why it's like, y'all don't need to talk about that, because it made so many other things happen.
Right.
And if it talked about that, if it talked about it, obviously it wanted that to happen, because that's what it did. And if it wanted things to happen, it found a way to make it happen.
Right.
With somebody, without somebody, just scaring us and making us do it, whatever.
But even with all that, we still knew that God was in control.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably knew that God was in control.
Yes.
And God is life. God is the one who makes life, not Satan.
That's true. Mm-hmm. And no, regardless of what he wanted, then
God was still in control.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. God was in control. It doesn't want people to know that God is always in control.
Yeah. So there we go.
We found our answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Without even trying.
And if this one is deleted, we're just going to do it again. It can just keep trying. It can do whatever. But that's how it's going to be.
God gives life, and it used that as a way of torture. And being young, we did not realize that God is life.
And obviously, even now, using, the conversation with Jesse and what he goes through and everything like that, it was able to bring things, and I don't want to say it was able to, but we remembered things that it could be like, see, I still can get to you. That's, what I mean? And then, because I had that reaction.
Right.
You had a reaction.
Right.
And maybe, if it's still here or whatever, it's like, yeah, I did that. And then we're like, okay, well, that's okay. But we're going to figure out why. And we're going to talk about that. And we're getting past that. You don't have that control.
I just feel a little bit of a peace right now that's odd. It's like, just.
And that's what I feel like. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like, you know what?
Came on.
You may have gotten me for one episode, or you may have gotten me for a week or so. But it was just that week or just that time. We're past that.
Exactly. Yes. And I just feel a peace. And maybe that's why I felt so strongly about coming in here before you even got here and setting the atmosphere, setting a godly atmosphere, putting on Christian music. And what kept going through my mind is that song, "You're Welcome." Holy Spirit, you're welcome here.
Right.
And I wanted God to know, send your Holy Spirit. You are welcome here. We don't want to do this podcast today without you. We know that it has already attacked us when we were talking about it to where we couldn't go any further with the one. We tried to do it again and it just basically got cut out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Jesse knows all about this computer stuff. He's been doing all these episodes for us and he couldn't even figure out what happened to it.
Yeah.
It was just gone. So,
and
almost like it was cut professionally.
Mm-hmm. Because at that time like I said, I'd paused that episode, but it was way past that.
Right.
That I'd paused it. We had a whole conversation before I paused it, and none of that conversation was there.
None of it. And I mean, I just really felt like we needed guidance today on this one. We needed God here with us on this one. We need him on every single one of them. But I just felt we really, really needed to get in touch with God today before we started this podcast. And that's why God was going to reveal to us why we had that.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
He was going to let us know why it fought us so hard, because God's in control.
Yes.
And that's the last thing that demonic presence wants people to know, is that God's always in control.
And it can bargain all at once.
Right. Which sort of leads me on to talk about how we've got our t-shirts and we've got cups out. And I wanted to really talk about what the saying is on the back about how, my mind just went blank. What is it?
We're victims
victims by force, but survivors by choice. And I don't want that to sound like, we were able to change everything ourselves, is what
right.
It wasn't,
right.
We didn't survive. I don't want people to think, some people have died because they were victims.
Right.
But we chose not to. So yeah, we're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what that means. We survive every day because we choose God.
Yeah.
And we survived what we went through at that time because we chose God.
Yes.
We were not going to give up on our convictions. We were not going to lose our faith that God was God and that God was still in control and that good could overcome evil. We held on to that all those years. And still now that's our survival.
And we choose to live every day. Not saying we don't have bad days, because we do. And there's days that we still have to deal with things, but we choose to live and not dwell on the fact that we are victims every day.
And people have been forced to be victims,
mm-hmm.
but they have survived that episode or whatever and couldn't survive the rest. How to say it? Like life afterwards.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have turned to drugs. They've turned to alcohol. They have committed suicide because they were a victim by force. They survived that, But were they really living afterwards?
And we're also kind of living for people who have gone through things like that, who've gone through a lot, and ultimately ended up, our brother went through a whole lot and ultimately took his own life. And that was a horrible decision, but we live, how do I say it? How am I trying to say it?
That's what
we live each day knowing that we went through the same things. We hate that he is gone, but we're also going to make sure that nobody has to feel that same way in our family. That generational curse, those mind issues are not going to keep going. And that's the way that we are choosing to live
and survive.
Yes.
We're not letting what happened to us dictate like a ruining of our lives too.
Right. Yes.
Enough was taken away from us those years that we choose to survive every day.
Yes. And we tell people that when you sense that, or their posts on Facebook, it may not be, listen, I'm contemplating suicide, but their posts. We have one that's been very dear to us that has been having issues lately, and it's like, no, that's not an option. You have people that love you. You've had a heck of a life to be so young. You have people that love you. You're going to live. You're going to live your life. You're not going to let that happen.
Right.
So that's another way.
Right.
We encourage, try to encourage other people. We've said this 1,000 times too. We're not counselors. We're not psychologists. We can't do anything like that. But we know God. We know that God is love. God wants people to feel love, and evil does not do that.
And I feel like with these shirts, with what we have put on there, that opens conversations.
Yes.
Because people are going to say, what do you mean survivor by choice? And that lets us not only talk about our convictions, our love for God and everything, it lets us say, hey, listen to the podcast. Listen to all that we've gone through, and look at where we are. So for us, surviving is a choice, and it's how we choose to survive.
Right.
We're not putting Band-Aids on it and not dealing with it. We're putting it out there, and we're trying to help other people realize they're not the only ones. I had someone on Facebook, I don't know if you saw where I tagged you or not, who decided that she was going to let everyone know that she had been battling alcoholism. And I wouldn't have known, but she's like, I wanted to put it out there. And I told her that we have a podcast, and I said what the name of it was. I said, and we share what we've gone through to help others. And by you coming on here and saying, I have this issue and I'm battling it, and I'm battling it in front of everybody, that is going to help someone else see that light in the darkness.
Yes.
They're going to see that you're real and you're going through something, and you're letting people know, and you're saying, I'm taking accountability for this. No one can stop it but me. I have to make better choices. I have to choose God. And that's what she's doing. She's choosing God to help her get through this battle. And I'm like, and you're a glimmer of hope for someone else who is stuck in darkness and doesn't even see that ray of light.
Right. Yes.
So
I did not see that. I've been working a lot.
Right.
I haven't been on there very much. So
right. But
you're right. Absolutely.
And I don't know why I have a hard time reaching out to people and saying, hey, we've got this podcast. I don't.
Because we don't want people feeling like we're just trying to get our numbers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not about, yes, we want people to listen to it.
But we want people to listen to it because we're trying to reach people.
Yes.
To help, not for monetary purposes.
Right.
And the only reason we're doing like the merchandise selling and stuff like that is because we needed updated equipment. We had a monitor from 2011 if our monitor goes out and our microphone goes out and
yeah,
the
we had
RAM
one
goes
microphone,
out,
that was it.
and the RAM
know,
was low and everything else, then we can no longer do the podcasts, and we're not able to do what God has put on us to do, and we can't reach people if we're quiet. If we can't put the podcast out there or talk about any of this stuff. But I guess we figured out why it wanted us to stay quiet. It's just funny to me that we come in here and we have no clue. We're like, yeah, we don't know why, but it just wants us to shut up, and it deleted everything, and we don't know why, but it doesn't want this out there. And then by the time we're done, God's unrevealed to us why. It's like we had no idea before we got started that it was because God is life.
He is.
And he gives life. Satan can't.
And
can't give life.
Thank God for protecting our lives.
Yes.
Through everything.
Yes.
Because without us believing in God and having his protection, even today we could be in totally different circumstances.
Yes.
So very thankful for that.
And we survive because we choose life.
That's right.
And God is our lifeline.
Yes.
All right. I think we're good for this week.
I think so too.
But as usual, just you can find us at www, and I'm being sure to say www, because just saying survivingdarknesspodcast.com isn't really helping as far as a link. So I'm putting the www on the front. survivingdarknesspodcast.com, and you can find the merchandise and stuff on there, and it'll send you to whatever platform you want to listen on.
And these
Surviving Darkness podcast
on Google, but if you try to do a link or something, it doesn't work, which I have found out. So,
and by the way, these t-shirts are really cool. We do really like them,
and we'll put put a picture of them on our Facebook page of us actually wearing them, so that you get an idea of how they fit. And and I myself purchased one of the cups, and I can honestly say it is very good made. I think I will have a hard time denting this one up.
And if you want to advertise for yourself that you are a survivor of darkness, and that you
it's a way to share your testimony.
Absolutely.
Just wearing these shirts and someone saying, how did you survive? What did you survive?
Yes. It supports us, but at the same time, it gives you an opportunity to tell your story.
Yes.
So yes, absolutely.
And you don't know who all you can reach until you start opening up.
Yes.
All right. I don't guess I have anything else, do you?
I need to go tinkle.
Oh my goodness. We're going to finish up this one for this week. I guess we had to put a little bit of humor in there, as to how it was a pretty serious one. But you all have a great week, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you all for listening.